Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. One time Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha was approached by the younger generation of Muslims who are called the Tabi'een. This is the second generation of Muslims. And they were curious about what kind of a man, what kind of a husband was the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam behind closed doors. And listen to Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha's very vivid and elaborate description of the beloved Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam. She responded with the following. كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا خلا في بيته ألين الناس وأكرم الناس كان رجلا من رجالكم إلا أنه كان ضحاكا بساما وما كان إلا بشرا من البشر كان يكون في مهنة أهله يعني خدمة أهله يخصف نعله ويخيط ثوبه ويحلب شاته ويخدم نفسه ويعمل في بيته كما يعمل أحدكم في بيته فإذا حضرت الصلاة خرج إلى الصلاة ولا رأيته ضرب بيده امرأة ولا خادما. Listen to this wonderful description of our role model alayhi salatu wassalam. Aisha describes a prophet that when he was alone in his home with his family, he was the softest and most gentle of people. He was the most generous of people. He was a person, he's a man just like any one of you, except that he would always be laughing and smiling. He was always in high spirits, high energy, always optimistic, alayhi salatu wassalam. And he's nothing more than a human being like us, that Allah gave prophethood to. And when he's at home, he would do the things anyone does at home. He would repair his slippers. He would tailor his gowns. He would milk the sheep, and he would serve himself. And he would do the various chores that people do at home. And when Salah would come, he would go out to Salah. And the Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha says, the Prophet never once laid his hand on a wife or on a servant, alayhi salatu wassalam. From this description of Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, let's take four important characteristics, four important ways in becoming a successful husband. This person who does these things, this is a man. Because who's more manlier than the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam? One, the husband needs to become his wife's family. You see, a woman at home under the care of her father and her mother, with her siblings who she grew up with, is very comfortable. Her father takes care of her, gives her allowance, lets her do what she wants, isn't controlling her. The mother is taking care of her, cooking, cleaning the home, and she's comfortable. So the question I pose to young men, why on earth would a woman, a young lady, leave such a home unless she thought she was going to something equal or better? Think about it. Would you ever leave your job for a job that is worse? Less salary, worse benefits, worse bonuses? No one would ever do that. And so, oh man, realize your wife is entering into a new home with you, a new life with you, under the assumption that you're going to provide her something equal or better than what she was in. Or else, why should she do that? Women have a connection to her siblings and her parents. She's comfortable in her home. So as husbands, we must provide our wives with an environment, with a home that's either equivalent or even better than what she had in her own home. The second thing that we can take in terms of how to be a successful husband is we need to respect her feelings, her thoughts, and her opinions. The Prophet ﷺ never hit a woman, ever. His wives, never. His servants, never. ﷺ. He is our role model. Yes, there is a verse that's so often abused, misused, and let me be very frank and blunt, although I don't have time to get into the details. In our times today, that verse is not to be applied. It's not a rejection of the verse. It's not a rejection that it's there. But in our times, it simply doesn't fit its purpose, its goal to preserve and to protect and keep the family stable. Today, it destabilizes the family. It causes harm. It sends a message to the children, to other people, that Muslims are bad people. I hear this so often. Why should I marry a Muslim man when my sister, my brother-in-law, is such a terrible person? He treats my sister so badly, so poorly. Or my aunt who's being treated poorly. There is a stereotype, unfortunately. And so a woman, when she enters into the home, into a new home, a life with her husband, she wants him to respect her, to listen to her, respect her opinions, her thoughts. And the Prophet ﷺ did precisely that. He would listen to his wives. He would converse with his wives. He would listen to what they had to say. The third thing that we need to do as husbands to be successful in our marriage is to be generous. As the Prophet, as Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha is describing, كَانَ أَكْرَمُ النَّاسِ. He was the most generous of people. And what is generosity that a woman needs? Generosity with our money and generosity with our emotions. And the most common complaint I get from married women is that my husband is simply stingy. Stingy with money or stingy with words. And a woman simply cannot bear such an environment. It's so difficult upon her. Generosity with money doesn't mean you spoil her to where she becomes, corrupt. Why do we assume that? A lot of men say, if I give my wife money, she's going to take advantage of me. She's going to become, her manners are going to go south. Why do we assume that? How do you not know that it's going to improve her manners? She's going to love you more. She's going to respect you more. I don't know where the stereotype comes from. But also, generosity is with words, with emotions. Women might have a spending husband. He's generous. But he cannot, for whatever reason, he cannot say, I love you. You look very beautiful today. Wow, I'm so lucky to have you. A woman needs to hear that. She loves to hear that. It makes her feel safe. It makes her feel comfortable. And the Prophet ﷺ was of the most generous of people. He was generous with how he spent with his wives. Sometimes he didn't have, and that's true. And sometimes his wives went a little bit overboard in terms of what they were asking of him. But nonetheless, he was generous when he had money. And he was generous with his words. You might say, I don't have money. I'm barely making ends meet, if even that. I can be generous with my money, or else the entire family falls apart. That's okay. There's another thing that you can do, and it's free. Be generous with your words, with your emotions. The fourth thing that we take from the description of the Prophet ﷺ was that he helped around the house. When a woman sees her husband helping around the house, she falls in love with him. She feels safe around him. She feels that she can trust him. And she sees that he respects me. He feels my pain. He feels what I'm going through. And so doing the simple things, you see the family room is a little bit messy. Take 5 minutes, clean it up, and you'll feel better as well. You see her making the table. Get up and make the table with her. Take 2 minutes. But it's the world to her. You see she's cleaning around the house. Go and clean with her and make it a good time. Make it a fun time. Right? Go and be emotional with her as you're cleaning the house. You turn it into a loving environment. Look at the Prophet ﷺ, the most gentle of people. He never used harsh words. He never used aggressive behaviors. The most generous of people, ﷺ, generous in his words, his emotions, and with his money. And he worked around the house. If we can do this, then inshaAllah, bi'idhnillah, we're on a path towards a healthy family, a beautiful, loving, nourishing marital life. And we ask Allah for tawfiq. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.